It is true, our life is made up of God's influences. And what are God's influences? The feeling that when something happens that seems random, it resonates within you with a completely different, new meaning. On the one hand, I have to thank God because I do not lack work, ministry, but I agreed to come here because those who live the mystery of the cross always take precedence over everything, always. I will tell you a secret. The Father refuses nothing to the Son on the cross, that is, to Jesus on the cross. Whatever Jesus crucified asks of the Father always says yes. So, mysteriously, when our life passes through the mystery of the cross, in a certain sense, it also becomes a door opener for many other situations and for many things. And so, I am struck by the Christian witness of those who live the experience of the cross, but in this experience of the cross the light of the resurrection shines through, because what happened could simply remain a tragedy, but instead the light of the risen one shines through, and I believe this is something that is good for everyone's heart, and for me personally who am here among you. This morning I thought I would share with you a reflection that would start from two fundamental considerations. Each of us has our own story, and each of us in our story sometimes stumbles upon something that was unexpected. If we were to use secular, pagan language, we would have to say that there are unforeseen events that make you fall. Unforeseen because they are beyond calculation, beyond what you imagine for your existence. And yet our life is also made up of unforeseen events, that is, things that you did not imagine you would have to experience, and instead you have to experience them. Sometimes the unexpected is beautiful and your heart fills with gratitude because something you hadn't planned for bursts into your life and floods it with light. But sometimes the unexpected is ugly stuff that seems senseless, absurd, unjust, unbearable to us, and has the power to fill everything with darkness. If we imagine that faith serves to avoid these things, in reality we are simply using Christianity as if it were an amulet, a good luck charm that should help us avoid certain things. But Christianity is not an amulet that you wear so that bad things don't happen to you. Do you know what Christianity is like? It's like Noah's utopia. When Noah was building his ark, everyone made fun of him and said, "But here in this place where there is nothing, where there is no sea, where there is nothing, you start building a boat, an ark. Why are you doing this?" The command that the Lord gave him to build this blessed ark is irresistible inside him. And he does it when the sun shines, when everything is going well, when things are going well, when apparently there is no reason to build a boat, an ark. Then the flood comes, and if there had not been that ark, Noah would have died. This is Christianity. Very often the Lord gives us faith so that when life strikes against us, for better or for worse, we manage to stay afloat. But if we had not had that ark, in the face of that flood we would have died. And how many of us live in the despair of death? Because we have not had the grace of that boat, of that ark for many reasons. Perhaps because no one announced it to him, no one told him that it was possible to build a small boat that would allow you to stay afloat in the face of the floods of our existence. But even there, when all seems lost, nothing is ever lost. And here a beautiful page of the New Testament illuminates us. We are in the Gospel. One of the most beautiful characters that is told in the Gospel is Peter. Peter speaks often. He is the one who speaks on behalf of everyone. He is truly the first, the rock on which Jesus says he will build his church. And very often, you see, this character is the man of faith because he professes faith, but also the man of weaknesses, of doubts, of denial. In short, behind Peter we see the dynamics of each one of us. And once this is exactly what happened, that the disciples were in the boat at the mercy of a storm, and in the heart of this storm they saw Jesus walking on the water. They were all frightened by the fact that Jesus was walking on the water and was coming towards them. Peter thought it was a ghost, and to verify that the man who was walking on the water was not a ghost, he went to the boat and said, "I am a ghost, He walks toward him and says, "If it's really you, command me to come to you too on that water, to walk on this storm too." Do you know what Jesus does? He says, "Come, get out of that boat." And he puts his feet out of that boat and begins to walk on the water. Even he doesn't think it's possible. And yet it's happening. He's walking on the water. He's not drowning. He's walking like Jesus does. But the gospel says that the wind became stronger, and Peter looks at that storm, sees the wind and begins to be afraid. How he begins to be afraid, that is, how he is distracted from the trust he has in Jesus, he sinks and drowns, and the only thing that comes to his mind to do is to pray with a single ejaculation. "Lord, save me. Lord, save me." You see, it's not that there's a theology of the storm, there's a catechesis on why we sink. There are moments in life when neither books, nor speeches, nor philosophies can help us, and our prayer becomes very small, very brief. Pull me out, save me, because if you don't pull me out, I won't get out of this whole story. Do you know how this story ends? That Jesus takes him for a fool. Pulls him out of the water, puts him in the boat, and then says to him, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" To the first pope in history, Jesus says, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" But we should not be surprised or make fun of Peter because this happened, because our life is made exactly in Peter's way. There are times when it seems to us that we understand everything, that we trust and things work out, and other times when we no longer understand anything and we sink and are in crisis, in a deep crisis, and we feel like we are drowning. But it is precisely here that hope returns, when we learn again that it is never too late if we turn to the Lord. And even when all seems lost, there is still hope, if we have the humility to turn to Him with a single prayer, with a single formula: "Lord, save me. Lord, save me." So, today I imagined, I have nothing particularly precious, mine, personal, to offer you. The only thing I can offer you is the Word of God, because the Word of God tells us, like a lit lamp, everything we need to reread our lives with different eyes and to see how, by looking at our lives with different eyes, we can understand what the Lord is asking of us and, perhaps, also what direction we should take in our existence. In this sense, you see, the more we read the Word of God, the more we identify with ourselves, the more we feel understood, the more we feel at ease, and the more we realize that our dramas, our weaknesses, our questions are all in the Bible. Even our anger, our resentment, our fear, our sense of rebellion that we have towards God. The Bible is full of people who rebel, who are angry, who cry out against injustice, who feel alone. Don't you realize that when we enter Holy Week and read the entire story of the Passion, when the Son of God goes up to the cross, He says a word that should scandalize us: my God, why have you forsaken me?" If even Jesus feels alone, Why should we be so presumptuous as to say, no, this won't happen to me? It also happens to us to feel alone, abandoned, to see no way out, to live as if everything had no future, no hope. But while I was praying and trying to organize my thoughts about the things I wanted to share with you, a book kept coming to mind, a short, very brief, intense, extraordinary book found in the Old Testament. It is the book of Ruth. In this book, as the title itself suggests, the story of Ruth is told, but in reality it is wrong because it is not simply the story of this woman. At least it is the story of two women, Naomi and Ruth, who are the mother-in-law Naomi and the daughter-in-law Ruth. But to be even more precise, we should say that it tells the story of a family, the family of Elimelech. And then it tells what creates the preconditions for the history of salvation. That is, at the end of this whole story, as we will see in a moment, we find those who are the ancestors of David, and from David, remember, Jesus will be born. So the story we are about to tell is a story that concerns Jesus closely because it is the story of a small part of his descendants. Because this is an enlightening book and because it can answer the question in the title of our meeting. Hope is never so lost that it cannot be found again. It is a beautiful phrase, isn't it? But we should say yes, but what does it mean? What does it mean when you lose hope and do not despair because you can find it again? How? How can a person find hope again? The story begins with a love story. Elimelech loves a girl named Naomi. So, among you, there are surely many people who have lived and are living the vocation of falling in love with someone, of feeling that life has changed because you have found love. And when you find love in life, life opens up, that is, you make plans, you imagine the future, you imagine the rest of your life with this person. Then perhaps life will not go exactly as you imagine, but let's say that you have found love, you have found a vocation, whatever the vocation may be, marrying someone, becoming a priest, going on a mission, consecrating yourself, living whatever part of your life. You realize you have found a vocation when, by loving something or a circumstance, your life opens up before you, that is, you imagine the future. When a person, we could say, is depressed, when they no longer have a future, they do not imagine it, they do not see that there is anything else in front of them. As long as you have a future, it means that you are fulfilling your vocation, that you are living something beautiful, that is, life before you like a great horizon. Elimelech loves a woman, her name is Naomi. Naomi loves a man named Elimelech. They start a family and what happens right away? That their love is a true love. And how do you know that it is a true love? Because at a certain point a terrible famine arrives, a famine that makes them feel hungry. They have no work, they have no way to make it to the end of the day, how to earn their bread. So they are forced to, because of the famine, to leave, to become migrants. But up to this point, as unjust as a famine is that forces you to leave your land, to leave your roots, to begin a journey of hope, this is what we are talking about. They have a strength, they have something on their side. Do you know what it is? We are in trouble, we are in famine, but we have each other, we love each other. As long as I have someone I love, I have everything, I can face anything. The tragedy in a life is loneliness. But as long as you have someone you love and someone who loves you, you have everything you need. If we had to translate what I just said to you, this is the definition of the church. The church is having a circuit of relationships where you say, there is someone who loves me and someone I love, and as long as there is that love, I can face anything, even the most terrible famine. They set out on a journey, but they are together and they go far from their land and they give birth to two sons, Maon and Kilian. And while they are far from their land and trying to bring bread home, they give birth to children, two beautiful sons, but at a certain point something terrible happens and 𝗟𝘂𝗏 dies and Naomi is left alone with two children. How many times does this happen in our lives? I dreamed of growing old with someone, of reaching the end of my days with a person by my side and that person is taken away from me. It is an injustice, it is dark, it is that black unexpected event that ruins your whole dream like ink. However, no matter how desperate Naomi may be, she knows that she must find strength because she has two children. She cannot throw herself on the ground because she must live to support her children. She is a widow. In the Bible, when it speaks of a widow, it refers to a category of people who no longer have anyone to protect them, no one to watch over them, no one to provide for them. It is the experience of feeling precarious. It is the experience of feeling alone. So, someone here could intervene and say, but why does God allow two people who love each other to have to experience this terrible separation? The death of one of the spouses and then especially the death of a spouse when you have two children, two small children, how can you go on? It's unfair. Why does God allow this? If you want to read the Bible to answer these questions, you will be disappointed, because the Bible does not answer this question. Why does all this happen? It is a mystery to us because it happens, and yet it does happen. But with great effort and perhaps also with great trust in the Lord, Naomi raises these children who grow up and they too find love. They fall in love with two women from the place where they have migrated. They marry two women, one is called Orpah and the other is called Ruth. It seems that everything is going well again, that is, life is resuming. Yes, it happens, unforeseen events happen, a famine happens, an external condition happens that changes all your plans, a loss happens, but life goes on and on because there are these children who in turn love, who in turn imagine their future. And then another tragedy happens. Both of Naomi's sons, Maon and Kilian, die, both of them, without leaving any children. So this woman Naomi finds herself far from home, she no longer has a husband and she no longer has any children. It is the most total blackness. You see, it is the condition that we live in our lives. When the pain we experience has the power to take away all hope. There is no such thing as first-class pain and second-class pain. Of course, if we were to speak in terms of intensity, what could be greater than the pain of a parent who loses a child? None, because it is the most important thing that exists, right? A parent should not outlive their children. And yet this happens and this woman Naomi is crossed by every type of suffering. A suffering that comes from circumstances, famine, a suffering that affects a significant relationship, the death of the person she loves. A suffering that touches the most precious thing in her life, her children. Everything is over, far from home, she no longer has a husband and no more children. So, go to Naomi and tell her, Naomi, hope is never so lost that it cannot be found again. How would Naomi have responded? I don't know if at the time there were chairs in those tents, but perhaps a chair pulled out would have been the most appropriate response for this woman. And she has every right to be angry. She has every right to be disappointed, because we profess our faith in a God who is our Father and who loves us. How can love allow something so terrible? This is the scandal of the cross. How can love put us in such a difficult situation? It would be nice if I told you this story saying, but Naomi was a strong woman and with great faith in God she also faced this suffering. No, Naomi is a human woman like all of us and she perceives her life as a life that is over. She changes her name. She no longer wants to be called Naomi. She wants to be called Mara, because her life has become Mara and she has nothing left. The only thing she can do you know what it is? Wait to die, wait for her life to end too. Now, while she finds herself in this dramatic situation in which everything seems over, everything seems lost, and this woman perceives that her whole life is pervaded by bitterness, she has to put her papers in order. Even at that time there were legal papers that had to be done, and she found herself responsible for 2 daughters-in-law, 𝗟𝗂𝗶 and 𝗟𝗪𝗏, who were the wives of her sons to whom she had not given offspring. And she feels the duty to free them from the bond and to say, I have no more children, my children are dead, now go back home, make a life for yourselves, find another love, start your existence over. It is an act of extraordinary generosity. In her grief, this woman is not selfish. She is basically saying, there is nothing left for me, but I hope that there is a future for you. So she is desperate, but she hopes that others are not. This woman has a beautiful openness of heart. I want to read to you what happens in this dialogue that begins to change this woman's life. Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, Go, each of you return to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with those who have died with me. Do you hear what she said? With those who have died with me, because she now feels dead, there is no one left. May the Lord grant each of you to find peace in the home of a husband. May you have a future, may you fall in love again, may life shine before you. This is what she is saying. And he kissed them. But they burst into tears and said to him, No, we will return with you to your people. And Noah insisted, Turn back, my daughters, why should you come with me? Or are there still sons in the womb who could become your husbands? Turn back, my daughters, go. I am too old to marry again. Even if I thought I had hope and were to marry tonight and have children, would you wait until they were grown up and then forego marriages? No, my daughters, I am much more distressed than you are, for the hand of the Lord is against me. Do you see how she perceives it? That God has turned against her. Again they wept. 𝗟𝗂𝗶 kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth did not leave her. Naomi said to her, Look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her God. You too must go back like your sister-in-law. But Ruth said, Do not entreat me to leave you or go back from following you. Wherever you go, I will go, and wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord do this to me, and more besides. If anything but death separates me from you. What a beautiful profession of faith towards her mother-in-law. I will never leave us. I know we have no future. Then we will die together, we will go away together, and we will live this last part of our life together. Only death will separate me from you. This is what she is saying, and seeing that she was truly determined to go with her, Naomi did not insist any longer, and they continued on their journey until they reached Bethlehem. So, here the story begins to change. What is it that brings hope back into the life of a person who has lost everything? What is it that brings hope back into the life of a person whose existence is wounded by suffering? It is not speeches, it is not words, it is not the consolations to which we are accustomed. Ruth offers her mother-in-law and herself, that is, a bond, a closeness. He is basically telling her, I don't have the answer and I don't have the solution, but I won't leave you alone. This is where hope begins. When all seems lost, you discover that you are not alone, alone on that cross, and you mysteriously discover that there are many people who do not want to leave you alone on that cross. People who do not have the answer to why that thing happened. People who do not have the solution to give you back what was taken from you, but people who say, we will not leave you. This is a miracle that we almost never notice, and that is that what changes our lives are the people who continue to love us even when it is no longer convenient to love us. Because remember that when a person suffers from a tragedy, a misfortune, it is as if they were sick with the plague. Everyone stays away from them. But not because we are selfish, but simply because no one can bear the feeling of feeling helpless in front of another. And what do I say to these people now? And what do I give to these people now? And since you can't say anything to them and you can't give them anything, you stay away from these people. Ruth, on the other hand, who can't say anything and can't do anything, doesn't leave. He offers this woman companionship, a bond, a friendship, a loyalty. This is loving people for free. And do you know why I say loving people for free? Because it's easy to love someone who can give you something in return. When a person suffers in this way, they can't give you anything in return except their anger, their blows, their resentment or their silence or their desire for death, and you stay by their side. Instead, you don't leave, you stay by that person's side. God's miracle is called Ruth. God is concrete when He brings hope back into people's lives because He always acts through someone's humanity. And do you know what happens? What we just read. So He says they continued on their journey until they reached Bethlehem. In short, what is resignation? Resignation is stopping and just waiting to die. And instead, the fact that they are together sets them on a journey again, They don't know where they will go. They don't know what life has in store for them. They are no longer so deluded as to be able to imagine a rosy future again. No, they are not like before. These women are disillusioned, and yet they walk, and yet they keep going, because there is still a story. Who knows what God has in mind, despite what has happened to us, where He is leading us despite all that darkness, what He is imagining for each of us. But the miracle is to resume the journey, even if you don't know where you are going. And when we were young and in love, we imagined that now we will buy a house and then maybe find a good job and then have children and then maybe grow old together and then maybe do this, that. There are moments in life when you are afraid to imagine anything else, and yet you keep going because God still has something to do in your life and you don't know it. I invite you to read this book, because I won't be able to summarize everything that happens, but what happens is beautiful, because, returning to Bethlehem, Rutherford goes to glean the fields for a close relative of her father-in-law Elimelech, whose name is Boots. He falls in love with this woman, through a legal system, redeems this woman, marries this woman, and they have a son, Obed. And this grandson of Naomi gives Naomi's life a new lease on life. Obed also becomes the father of Jesse. Jesse is the father of David. Do you understand? The lineage of Jesus is marked by the tragedy of people who have seen their lives wounded by terrible things. And yet they have moved on. And yet they have allowed the Lord to continue writing, even though they did not have in mind where He was leading them. It is an immense lesson for each of us. It is not about understanding. The most interesting thing about a person who is suffering is not about understanding, but about feeling loved. So, the most important thing is that when you feel that someone continues to love you in all your pain, even if you feel untouchable at that moment, if you feel that someone loves you, your outlook changes. Naomi stops calling herself Mara, rediscovers her real name, Naomi, and returns to blessing life, to blessing God, to blessing what is left of her days. Now, if this woman could do something else, she wouldn't ask for her husband and her children again. Yes, probably yes. We all wish that an injustice had never happened in our lives, that a loss had never happened, but it happened and this thing happened. And what do we do if not resume the journey, because the story continues in a way that is unimaginable to us? So, what does it mean to have faith in these moments? To say, no, I don't care about this suffering. But do you really think that a believer would be so presumptuous as to say, I don't care? Is it okay if my husband, wife, or child dies? But do you really think that a believer, precisely because of faith, becomes immune to all this or is not scandalized by all this? What does it mean to have faith? To have the answer to why God did this, that? No, those who have faith do not have the answer to this terrible mystery that is the cross. But those who have faith know that God continues to love them even in that absurdity and that He does not leave them alone in that darkness and that He accompanies them to believe that the story is greater than their imagination. This is why it is worth finishing the journey, because we are all on a journey, my friends, and we can die at 20 or at 100, but the journey is over. So, you see how this book does not tell us about miracles as we imagine them, right? Oh, how beautiful it is when you read about the multiplication of the loaves and fish. Imagine the delirium of the crowd when they see these loaves and fish multiplied. Imagine the applause when they see the paralytic begin to walk, or the amazement when they see a man born blind who regains his sight. We are used to thinking that faith is miraculous work. This book does not talk about miracles, it talks about relationships. That is why we talk about miracles, because true miracles are relationships. The greatest thing that God can do in your life is to give you someone by your side when all seems lost and there is darkness. I always like to say that unfortunately we have transformed them from second-rate characters, from protagonists who are not protagonists, who are simply filler, a bit like when we prepare nativity scenes, right? And we no longer know what to put in our nativity scenes. So we make the carpenter's shop, then we put the shepherd with the sheep, then we put the women washing the clothes inside. They are all filler characters, but if you are making a nativity scene, the most important thing is Jesus coming into the world, yes or no. So, we did something similar with the Via Crucis. By now we imagine it with so many characters who seem to be there as filler. How beautiful it would have been if during Jesus' Via Dolorosa, his cross, his darkness, his condemnation to death, his being nailed to that cross, some great miracle had happened. And instead, nothing happened. And Jesus really died on that cross, not pretending to die, he really died. And yet I tell you that in that terrible, dark story, in which an innocent man dies on the cross, there are many miracles in God's way. Do you know what these miracles are called? They are called Simon of Cyrene. They are called Veronica. They are called Mary, the mother of Jesus. They are called John. They are called Mary of Clopas, Mary of Magdala. They are called Nicodemus. They are called Joseph of Arimathea. What did I just list for you? So many people who do not leave Jesus alone at the moment when he is most alone. And this is an extraordinary thing, because you see, there is a moment in which the Gospels tell us that Jesus dies. Now, if he is dead, that's enough, the story is over, right? The Gospel tells us that even when Jesus is dead, there is someone who shows him tenderness. So Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus went to ask for the body of Jesus and took him down from the cross. To our general shame. Do you know who asked for the body of Jesus? Not Peter, not James, not John. Do you know who these three best friends of Jesus were? But two strangers, two disciples of the last hour. Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus show tenderness towards the dead body of Jesus. And do you know why the Gospel tells us this? That God keeps us company and does us good. Sometimes he does not go through those who should keep us company and do us good, but he does it through unimaginable people, people who you say, but they have nothing to do with us. Well, if God cannot enter through the door, he enters through the window, but he does not leave us alone. And I think this is an extraordinary thing. Then let me add another little piece. The Gospels already tell of at least 2 resurrections that dealt specifically with the theme of children. But the son of the widow of Nain, do you remember? Jesus enters this village, witnesses the funeral procession in which this widow, pay close attention, a widow who is accompanying her son to the cemetery. Jesus is moved by this, stops the funeral procession, approaches this woman and tells her not to cry. And then he touches that coffin and calls that boy and sets him on his feet and gives him back to his mother. Another story, that of Jairus, the leader of the synagogue, takes off all his titles, all his religious beliefs, goes to Jesus, is desperate, places himself at Jesus' feet, says, "My daughter is dying, come quickly." And Jesus agrees to go with this man, But there is an incident along the way because there is another unfortunate woman, poor thing, who has been bleeding for 12 years, and in the middle of the crowd she reaches out her hand to touch the fringe of Jesus' cloak. She reaches out her hand and is healed instantly. And Jesus wastes time because he starts looking for this woman in the middle of the crowd, which is a fatal waste of time. Do you know why? Because when they set off again, Jairus' servants go to Jairus and tell him, "Leave her alone, she's dead by now." What happens at that moment? Jesus looks Jairus in the eye and tells him one thing: just keep having faith. And they set off for home. Why am I telling you these stories? Because one might say, so God can intervene, he can give us things back, he can fix everything. But look, then both of them, the daughter, the son of the widow of Nain and Jairus' daughter, then died again. A few years later they died again. We don't know anything about how their story ended. The problem isn't bringing a dead body back to life. The problem is Jesus, who doesn't remain indifferent to the pain of people who are suffering. Even though he is the solution, he feels involved in the pain he encounters. And when he finds someone who is desperate, because the death certificate tells you, "Look, your daughter is dead," he says, "Just keep having faith, don't despair. Set out on the journey with me," says Jesus. So you set out on the journey with him, and you don't know how long it will take before you reach that house and see restored to you what was taken from you. But you trust, you set out on the journey, you let yourself be challenged by this man. So, there are two passages from the letter to the Hebrews that I think are enlightening, because this is another thing that we believers often forget. It almost seems as if we are before God and we have to convince him about our pain, convince him about the injustice we have suffered. It is as if we can't find the words to say, you don't know what it means to feel lost, to feel the ground disappearing under your feet, to not know where to turn. You don't know what it means to feel alone, because you are God and we are only men, creatures. Listen to what the letter to the Hebrews says. Since we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast to our profession of faith. Faith. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet without sin. Jesus felt everything we feel. He knows what loneliness, pain, abandonment, and despair mean. He felt it himself. He understands this because he went through it. Do you understand? The credibility of Jesus is that he went through our human life. He knows everything about our human experience, which is why he is credible in our eyes, and this should give us great serenity. Because if a mother or father who has lost a child meets a father and a mother who have lost a child, they do not need to speak, they understand each other, and one feels understood because they say they have been through it. Their pain has made us capable of communicating with each other without needing to speak. Well, know that when you suffer, you no longer have prayers, but that does not mean that you are not praying, because Jesus understands you even if you do not speak, because he has been through it. Do we believe this or not? And this is the fundamental question. We do not find ourselves in front of a luminary of philosophy who gave us the existential reading of pain. But what do we need something like that for? The doctrine of Jesus is his cross, his wisdom and his suffering. But there is a small detail. At most, we are capable of compassion, we are capable of goodness, we are capable of tenderness, we are capable of empathy, which are all miracles, in a world made up of individualists and selfish people. When you find someone who loves you, you have found a miracle. But beyond compassion, empathy, closeness, we can give nothing else. And Jesus, on the other hand, beyond all this, can give us one thing, resurrection. And do you know what resurrection is? It is not about restoring everything to the way it was before, as if nothing had happened. Resurrection is about saying that everything that seems finished to you is not finished, it is just beginning. Look, we are in a piece of land in Italy where work, contact with the land perhaps makes you understand even more these words that I am about to tell you because they are words from the gospel. When a farmer takes a seed and throws it into the ground, the seed dies and so it is finished as a seed. Do you understand? Its being a seed ends, but it is not finished. Something else is beginning, which we call sprouting. So, it seems that we live in this forgetfulness. We think that we are only finished, that our death only ends things. Jesus came to tell us instead, I have given you the power to transform into a beginning what was only the end. You are only capable of dying, and instead of making you sprout, what we will be is not the same thing as here. We are not given back exactly what was taken from us. We are not given back the seed. Do you understand? Because in eternal life we will be an ear of corn, we will be something else. And our brothers who have passed through death have not only passed through something that says end, but they are at a beginning. Something else has begun, they are becoming something else. This is what the resurrection is. Then, pay attention, the final resurrection will come. What is the final resurrection? The fulfillment of this path. But it has already begun. Now, this is what we lack. We read this life as if everything were in this life. This life is a small piece of a larger story, but do we believe it or not? So, Jesus who enters history has transformed the end into a becoming, into a beginning. That is why he solved the problem of the death of David, of Francis. That is why he solved the problem of all those who died of two illnesses, of two tragedies. A young boy, two very young boys who lose their lives so suddenly, so quickly, even though they are doing good, even though they are extraordinary people, they die. But one can say that a person like Carlo, or like Pier Giorgio, is truly dead. Yes, he died in a way, but the life of these people, precisely because it was founded in Christ, cannot end. That is why it continues. And only one day will we understand in what way it continues and what it is truly becoming. So, I simply wanted to tell you this today. We can all go through a region of death, of darkness. We can all encounter something in life that disrupts our expectations and puts us in a situation of despair. Returning to having hope means rediscovering that God loves us, but He always loves us through someone, and therefore our responsibility is to become that someone that God uses to revive hope in the desperate. And secondly, our compassion and closeness are not enough. That is why He gave us His Son Jesus, because He is the only one who can transform into an opportunity what for us is only a tragedy. That is why we believe in him, because he was not simply a good man who died, because Jesus did not just die, he rose again. And this is the most important thing for each of us, to remember that we are disciples, yes, of a Jesus who was crucified, but who is a crucified and risen person, not simply a crucified person. And so thank you. Thank you to those who today have lent us their cross so that we can reread our entire life. Thank you to those who became Ruth alongside Naomi. Thank you to Jesus who continues to fill with inexplicable hope and joy the hearts of people who have no hope. Answers to the whys, but looking inside they feel a victorious certainty that things are exactly different from how they seem. Thank you for all those who trust in Jesus and continue to follow him. Thank you to all those who bear witness to us because they show us that the meaning of life is never as we imagine it, but is always much greater than our imagination. And only if you trust will you finally see what God had in mind, which was much, much more than what you could have hoped for and imagined. Thank you, M.